Welcome back to the show. As I was discussing earlier, and as has been discussed all day, the Pennsylvania Consulting Group has put together an interim support on the supply issues that have been experienced by our province's electricity system earlier this winter, what is known now colloquially as Dark NL. Joining me tonight, and thank you for joining us. I know you're probably your throat is quite tired tonight. Mr. Ed Martin is joining us to just break down a little bit of what this report has brought to light, and I think it's what we've already known, isn't it?
Well, good evening, Jonathan, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Yes, to your point, we went through the report today at some length. I've had a chance to go through it again. When we compare it to the work that we did earlier this year, I think I'm pleased to see that we're aligned with Liberty on many of the findings, and we have been actioning those things aggressively, ever since January, February. And, we've been working closely with Liberty in terms of what they've reported. We're taking what we can from their report, taking the positives and putting actions in place to make our improvements.
There were a couple of things that I briefly didn't have much of a time to read this either. I noticed you used the word flip over as well today, or flip through. One issue that caught my eye, Ed, and I'm sure it did yours, it said, according to the report, aging infrastructure is an issue not only in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm referring, of course, to the Holyrood power generation plant. Aging infrastructure is an issue across our continent, and this report said that immediate replacement is not feasible for utilities. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, it's obvious because of the type of infrastructure we're talking about. Holyrood, Muskrat Falls, big generation. These things take years to build, and that's why, we plan ahead. With respect to the aging infrastructure, that is a critical point. And, one thing that, the report does recognize, and we recognize ourselves, about 7 years ago, we took a look at the assets. We realized just how old they were getting. Mm-hmm. We saw that the investment going into those assets was not sufficient, and we've taken time over the past 6 to 7 years to put a plan in place, put a comprehensive program in place. We've done condition assessments on the assets, and we've laid out a plan in terms of how to get ourselves to a point where those aging assets are up to snuff to get us through it, particularly to Muskrat. And that has resulted, in actually a doubling of the capital expenditures that we put into these assets over the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And we expect that to increase again next year. It's a lot of work. It's demanding work. We're playing some catch up on these assets. They're older and need investment, but we're on it. And what we're seeing is an improvement, throughout. We had our issues last January. What we're on now is bringing in even more resources. Liberty has suggested to us to take our plan and even expedite it further. We found the same thing. These assets are such an age that we have to keep, putting the necessary funds into them, and we have a program, and it's happening.
You say that the assets, of course, are aging and that you've had a plan in place for 5 years. So obviously, 5-year plans are par for the course for most corporations, and you were anticipating, Nalcor, of course, was anticipating that this would be an issue. Did you anticipate that this would be an issue nationwide? In other words, that there would be a supply issue for replacement parts for these assets that were aging? I know that this report from Liberty said, this aging stuff is now a continent-wide issue. But did anyone think about that 5 years ago, or was it more of a provincial sort of perspective? In other words, all right, we're going to have to replace all of these parts to our machinery in 5 years. No problem, there will be a supply out there.
No, I think it's been recognized continent-wide. You look at, the electricity system even throughout Canada. Many jurisdictions, throughout the country, developed their infrastructure, 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's fairly standard. And what's happening throughout the whole system is that, throughout the country, everyone's experiencing the same types of issues. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know in our particular case, we have recognized that. We recognized it, as I said, 6 or 7 years ago. We realized that the investment was not where it should be at that point, and we have been, rapidly increasing our expenditures to get ourselves to a place where we're comfortable. We're getting there, and, we're on top of it. There's no question about it. The big, term right now that we're looking at closely is now Muskrat Falls in service. And to that point, I just want the listeners, to understand that we had always planned to add some extra generation for increased reliability before Muskrat Falls came online, and that has always been planned. And what we've done, one step we've taken, in response to the events of recent months, is to expedite that. Mm-hmm. So instead of targeting December, January of 2015, 2016, we're bringing that back early by 8 to 10, 12 months, and pushing to get that in place for this winter upcoming. So that's one change. Always planned, always budgeted, but now we're trying to expedite some of that even faster.
Sure, and get it here before the transportation issues might become an issue, because obviously a lot of this will come via the water. These are not, we're not looking at screws and bolts. We're looking at large pieces of machinery that require large vessels to transport them. Do you think that it might be feasible to sort of double up the supply that you've ordered, and look at perhaps budgeting for some extra infrastructure if we are anticipating a high risk of outages again for the 2015 to 2017 winter seasons?
Well, a couple of answers to that. First, on the high risk, I think what we're doing is with the expediting this extra generation and making some of the other changes we're recommending, is that we are reducing that risk. Mm-hmm. And it's clear to ourselves in the report that taking steps, we can reduce that risk, and that's what we're doing. With respect to increasing the amount of generation, we've had the good fortune actually in terms of our investigation. We'd always planned to put in around 60 megawatts of extra generation. Sure. In late 2015. And, through our investigations, we have actually found some opportunities where we could stay within the budget we were discussing, get more generation, potentially in the 100 megawatt, range, and get it in early. And that's one of the reasons we're expediting our work, because, we think there's an opportunity to do that. But the second thing is, in all honesty, we've had the events of last winter and the winter before. When I look at that, I say, well, look, it's prudent. If we have the opportunity to expedite it, let's do it, because that is really going to be the key factor that's going to reduce the risk that's referred to in this report and that we see, and get us to a place where we're even more comfortable from now until Muskrat Falls in service.
Well, I look forward to that. I'm also, I got to say, Liberty's report points out a lot of the obvious answers to the questions that most of us have been asking since January 5th. When we were just almost finished this blackout. And, of course, they're pointing out that it's going to get a lot colder, and everybody needs to be better prepared. Do you think a company like this consulting company, is going to be able to cut and paste a lot of the findings for this province into other consultations when power facilities fail? I mean, everybody needs to be better prepared. Everybody needs to anticipate colder winters. Doesn't it seem like we're kind of paying money for people to say the obvious?
Well, first off, this is a company that goes around the United States and Canada doing this type of thing. So I sort of look at it from another perspective to say, look, they're bringing, information that they've experienced elsewhere, rather than, say they're doing something that we already know. I prefer to say, what can they tell us? What can they help us with? What can they add to our formula? Right. And, we're in the business of getting better all the time. And, so we took an approach with this particular company to say, look, please come in. Let's be open. Let's be transparent. Can you help us with anything? A lot of what we found is lining up with what they're saying. But as CEO of the company, I mean, that does give me some comfort. Obviously, we got great people, well over 900 dedicated Newfoundlanders and Labradorians throughout the province, working diligently and every day, working hard to keep the lights on, our friends, our neighbors. I know we got the right people. But as CEO, it is prudent to have another group come in, take a look at what we're saying, and if I get a second opinion from folks who have seen things from elsewhere, I think that's useful for us, and we're going to continue to look through this report and see if there's anything extra that we can take out of that to make us even better.
I suppose that's a very good point. Your predictions and your convictions were confirmed by an outside consulting group. Of course, Pennsylvania, this group from Pennsylvania, Liberty Consulting, has done work for the province before, so they are familiar with our territory, if you will. And this is I suppose it's a good idea to get your thoughts and predictions confirmed. I support that, and I'm glad that they came up with the same findings that you did, frankly, because this means we don't have to spend any more time trying to arrive at solutions. Both of you have a checklist, a shopping list, if you will, of things to do to fix it, one of which is making an application to the PUB for the purchase and installation of the 100 megawatt combustion generation turbine for next winter. Good luck to you, Mr. Martin. I know that this will not be the last time we speak, and I look forward to our next conversation.
No, look, it's a pleasure. Appreciate the time. And just one final, thought for folks is to let them know that, we're on this. We're on top of it. We're taking everything we find very seriously to improve. And at the same time, we're not losing our perspective on there's a mix between, spending money, cost, and reliability. So we always have to be careful not to go either way too far, because whatever we do is going to cost the consumer money. In the meantime, reliability is critical. So in the midst of all of this, I just want folks to know that we are still very much on top of the cost versus reliability equation, and we'll make the right decisions. I
think that's a great idea for a T-shirt as well, cost versus reliability equation. Maybe we can work on that and generate some funds for the province to make sure that we have a little bit more in the kitty for the snow clearing next round, hey?
Great stuff, Jonathan.
All right. Thanks for your time tonight, and we'll speak again.
Thank you very much.
Good night.